Today, we are delving deep into a dark chapter of Algerian history, the Black Decade. This was a period of intense civil conflict, characterized by mass killings, disappearances, and widespread violence. By understanding this period, we can better comprehend the Algerian struggle for stability and the challenges the nation faces today. Algeria gained independence from French colonial rule in 1962 after a bloody 8-year war. The newly independent nation was faced with the immense task of rebuilding its institutions, economy, and society. In the decades following independence, the National Liberation Front, FLN, the party that had led the fight for independence, established a single-party state. The FLN held power for several decades, and under its rule, Algeria made significant progress in many areas. Infrastructure was developed, education was expanded, and the status of women improved. However, as the 1980s progressed, Algeria found itself in a precarious situation. The global fall in oil prices severely impacted the economy, and with widespread unemployment and rising prices, discontent was growing. The government, under President Chadli Benjedid, implemented economic reforms, which led to an increase in privatization and foreign investment. However, these reforms did not benefit the majority of the population and led to growing inequality. The anger against the government was exacerbated by allegations of corruption, and there was a growing desire for political change. In 1988, a series of protests erupted across the country, which were met with brutal repression by the government. This only served to increase the public's anger, and in a surprising turn of events, the government responded by introducing political reforms. These reforms led to the establishment of a multi-party system, and in 1991, the first free elections in Algeria's history were held. The Islamic Salvation Front, FIS, an Islamist political party, won the first round of elections by a large margin. This result alarmed both the FLN and the military, who feared that an Islamist government would lead to an end to secular rule and the establishment of an Islamic state. Fearing the consequences of an Islamist victory, the military staged a coup, cancelling the second round of elections and arresting the leaders of the FIS. This act plunged Algeria into a deep and prolonged crisis. The FIS was banned, and its members and supporters took up arms against the government, leading to a bloody civil war. The conflict was marked by extreme violence on both sides. Islamist armed groups carried out bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings. The government responded with a brutal crackdown, involving mass arrests, torture, and extrajudicial killings. Civilians were caught in the middle, and many were killed or disappeared during this time. The violence escalated throughout the 1990s, with both sides committing atrocities. Armed groups, such as the Armed Islamic Group, GIA, and the Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat, GSPC, gained notoriety for their brutality. The government, on the other hand, was accused of using proxy militias to carry out attacks on civilians. As the violence raged on, the economy suffered, and ordinary Algerians faced immense hardships. The state of emergency declared by the government in 1992 remained in place for almost 2 decades, severely restricting civil liberties. Throughout the conflict, there were several attempts at reconciliation. In 1995, President Lamine Zerwal organized a referendum on a platform of peace and national reconciliation, which was overwhelmingly approved by the population. However, this did not lead to an end to the violence. In 1999, Abdelaziz Bouteflika was elected president, and he made ending the conflict his top priority. In his first year in office, he proposed a civil concord, which granted amnesty to armed militants who had not been involved in mass killings or bombings. This was followed by the Charter for Peace and National Reconciliation in 2005, which aimed to turn the page on the conflict by offering amnesty to both security forces and armed groups. The measures were controversial, with many arguing that they allowed perpetrators of atrocities to escape justice. However, they did lead to a significant decrease in violence, and many armed militants surrendered their weapons. Despite the end of the large-scale violence, Algeria continues to face challenges related to the Black Decade. Many of those who disappeared during the conflict remain unaccounted for, and there is a lack of accountability for the atrocities committed. The legacy of the Black Decade also continues to impact Algerian politics and society. The trauma of the conflict has led to a deep mistrust of Islamist parties, and the military continues to play a significant role in the political landscape. Additionally, the conflict had a lasting impact on the region. Many of the armed groups involved in the Algerian Civil War later became affiliated with international terrorist organizations, such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The Black Decade was a tragic period in Algeria's history, marked by widespread violence and human rights abuses. It is essential to remember and learn from this period to ensure that such atrocities do not occur again. While Algeria has made significant progress since the end of the conflict, there are still many challenges to overcome. The government must address the grievances of those affected by the violence and work towards greater transparency and accountability. Additionally, it is crucial to address the underlying issues that led to the conflict in the first place. This includes promoting inclusive economic development, addressing social inequalities, and fostering a more open and democratic political system. Ultimately, addressing the legacy of the Black Decade is essential for building a more stable and prosperous Algeria. It is a painful chapter in the nation's history, but one that must be confronted head-on. While the Black Decade was a period of immense suffering, it is also a testament to the resilience of the Algerian people. Despite the challenges they faced, they emerged from the conflict with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to build a better future. As we reflect on the past, let us also look forward with hope and optimism. By addressing the challenges of the past and working towards a brighter future, we can ensure that the Black Decade becomes a catalyst for positive change in Algeria. Thanks for watching Middle East Info. If you found this video insightful, please consider liking and subscribing. We appreciate your support.